Okay, so we kind of discussed the importance of what kind of information, how the hierarchy flows in cloud, how the information is stored, what we mean by subscription, what we mean by resource group, what we mean by resources. We kind of got a basic idea also how it works. Now, we would be continuing that same kind of discussion. Now, about services or might be any specific resource which you're trying to create. Now, there are a few other aspects also which we need to take into consideration. Now, it varies from service to service. If we are creating ADF, what kind of options we have? If we are creating any SQL server, so here, as I've said, SQL Server is maybe there are two different approaches to create databases in the Azure portal. One is SQL Server, where we need to create a server separately. And then inside this server, there is a flexibility to create a DB, which means a database. So these two are separate components. Maybe unless server, you cannot create a database. That is how the SQL Server concept works. And there is one more database which you can directly create, which is Azure SQL. The server is automatically managed by, it is managed by the Azure portal itself or the Azure team itself. We may need not go ahead and create any manual server requirement for this. If you directly create Azure SQL, a database would be directly created and server would be managed by the Azure team. Now, depending on what kind of service you are creating, the number of options, what we need to select, what we need to mention, it varies. There are multiple options. But one common option which is present in all the services or resources which we are creating in this cloud is one aspect which is called as region. Now, what do you mean by region? We have a component called as region. Now, maybe I will again go back and show you how services again are created to get a basic idea. But one common scenario which is present, and that is also available in the very first page where you are mentioning the resource group, where you are mentioning the name of that resource. Now, if you're creating some database or maybe a SQL Server database, you need to mention the server name, you need to mention the database name. At whatever page you are trying to mention these names and what kind of resource group they are part of, there is one more important aspect in terms of settings or in terms of selection, which a user has to do is a region. Now, what do you mean by region? See, region, it plays an important role. Now, why it plays an important role is, first, we need to understand the architecture of a cloud. Now, architecture in the sense, we have seen how the flow of information is, what kind of hierarchy we get in cloud while creating any new account. We have seen the tenant ID, we have seen the TPID configuration also. But apart from that, how that information which we are creating is stored in the background. It has to go back and store somewhere. That cloud also has some servers, that cloud also has some maybe databases in the background where our information is stored. So for that specific condition, region also plays an important role. Now, let me show you an example. Now, this is our subscription. If I go down to resources, now there are a few resources which are automatically created. If you take a look at this, the first one is our server, the SQL server, and inside this SQL server, there is a database which is created. We have a resource group information. Next to resource group, a location information or a region information is automatically available. Now, this is not automatically available. While creating any specific resource or a service, it is always recommended to select which region, inside which region you want to create this specific resource or a service. Now, if I again click on new resource and I'm trying to create any of the resource, now we have a SQL database or maybe any random resource. Let me click on data fact. Let's see what options we get. what we need to mention while creating this data factory. See, if you take a look at this, it is asking me subscription. Under this subscription, which resource group, under which resource group you want to create this data factory? What should be the name of the data factory? There are only default version 2. And if you see, there is an option called as region. So there is some information icon here. Choose the Azure region that's right for you and your customer. Not every resource is available in every region. Now, this is a separate part, the line which is after full stop. Not every resource is available in every region, but there is a flexibility to select a region here, which location you want to create. Now, how this cloud condition, how this cloud information is getting stored in the background, that is what we need to understand. And depending on that, a region is an important prospect. It is important. Why? Because from which region you are creating it, to which region. If you're working on a client project and if you are from India, you are selecting the Indian region. Okay, if that client is also from India, yeah, it would be a best suitable condition. But the client is from US and you're working from India, it has to vary. The location, the region which you're selecting while creating a resource, it is very important. You have to check whether client is okay with that specific region, or why that client is okay. See, it varies again. Now we need to again go back and first understand why region or location is important. So let me give you an idea. See, whenever you create any specific resource or a service, if you're mentioning some information, that information is stored somewhere. So cloud also has some storage. We need to first understand that. So where that cloud, that specific cloud or that specific subscription is going back and getting that information stored. See, cloud is somewhere connected to multiple data centers in the background. There are multiple data centers in the background. Now, this is our Azure cloud. So somewhere Azure has 200 plus services. Now, for all the cloud services, there is an important concept called as data centers. Now, somewhere Azure has a data center located in some region. Assume that it's some ABC region. ABC region or ABC location. Now, this is our data center. Inside the data center, there are multiple racks of storage accounts, or maybe there are multiple racks where all the storage information is kept. We have servers there, we have all the wired conditions, and we have multiple racks. Now, how that racks looks like, how the information is getting stored, maybe I'll give you a better idea. We have a website specially designed by the Microsoft team, where you can see how many regions are available, how that information is getting stored. But just to get an idea, for every cloud, whatever you are creating here, that information is getting stored somewhere. That somewhere is called as a data center. That somewhere is called as a data center, where all our information is kept. And inside these data centers, there are multiple storage spaces which are available. And inside that storage spaces, our information is getting stored. Now, the question is whether Azure has only one data center. No, that is not the case. Because there are millions of users who are using Azure on day-to-day basis. The data would be very high. It cannot be stored at one single data center. It has to be across multiple data centers. Now, that data center is called as a region. That data center, whichever data center is present at whatever location, that data center is called as a region. Now, assume that, as I've said, you are working from India and you're creating some service in this Azure. You want to create some service. Maybe you're creating ADF. You're creating an ADF as a service. Now, if you are creating an ADF and if that project or that client is basically from India, it is always recommended to select data center which is near to India. The region of the data center or the region where you want to create this resource, where you want to store your information, that should be near to India or near to that specific geographical location from where you're creating that service, or maybe from where you want to utilize that service. So Azure has multiple data centers, and in whichever region that data center is part of, that has to be precisely selected. And this is not with respect to Azure only. This is with respect to any cloud service. Now, why is it so? See, assume that again, in India, you have created this ADF and somewhere uh, there is a downtime. Yep, some cloud services also goes through downtime, right? So there is some downtime. The Microsoft team is going back and working on that downtime while that downtime occurred. So that all processes are going in the background. Now, somewhere at Indian time, 18 hours IST, that means 6 p.m. IST, there is a downtime. In that case, the data center is located at India region, but if the client needs to get information at 18 hours IST, but the client is at some US location, maybe EST time here, some 9.5 hours difference. So his morning time, he wants to get the latest information. What is the pipeline run inside this ADF? But there is a downtime. In India, 18 hours at 6 p.m. IST, somewhere it's out of office. Okay, accepted. But for folks in US, in EST time, that specific service which is facing the downtime, that client wants that information. He wants to see what is the pipeline status, whether the pipeline run, whether the data is movement, the data movement is correct or not using this ADF. If there is a downtime, the client cannot come back and check, right? So that is what it is recommended. If you are creating a service, it should be feasible to the customer which or with whom you are working. So if it would have been a very better condition that if the ADF which is created in India region, if the client is from US, it should have been created from a US region. In case of US region, the downtime would be as per US region, not as per Indian time. So why is it important? The service delays, the network delays, the downtimes are all calculated depending on which region you are creating that specific service. That is where the importance of creating the services, managing the services comes into picture. As I've said, for every cloud, there are multiple data centers. It is common for any specific cloud. And in one region, nowadays, in one region, there can be multiple data centers as well. Earlier, there used to be have only one data center per region. Now, as and when the data is getting increased, one region can have multiple data centers also. Now, if I again go back, you have a flexibility. There are multiple regions here. There are multiple regions which are available. So we have to go back, and the number of regions is increasing day by day. There are around somewhere 22 different regions which are available in today's, in today's scenario, or maybe as of today, 22 plus different regions are available. But as I've said, as and when the data is getting increased, the number of regions are also getting increased. So while creating any specific service, keep one thing in mind. It should be selected as per which project you're working. The client, the client is from which specific region. It has to be because that service has to be precisely available as per client time slot. So that condition has to be correctly selected. Now, as I've said, there are more than 22 plus regions as of now. Yeah, going further, it might increase also. You have a flexibility. You can see all the regions are mentioned here. Now, do you think only these are the regions? There are more than these. There are more than these. Now, how to go back and select what all regions are present? See, once you mention Azure Cloud regions, click here. The very first information which you get. See, you have multiple options here. You have to click on that link. An interesting, might be an animated information you can see here. datacenters.microsoft.com. Now, somewhere a globe is getting viewed here. You can see which part of world you are. You can select, or you can see what all regions are present. What all regions are present. Now, if I go back to India, see in India, there is South India region. There is in India South Central. Now, this is not a region. This is some data center, may not be a region. And this is one region. Regions are, I mean, they are significantly given by these blue dots, some light blue dots. And the other white dots which you are seeing, this is a country name. If you see the blue dots, these are all the networking areas. This cannot be a region. These are what the networking areas. From Delhi, there are some networking areas which is connected to some part of India inside this Gujarat. Somewhere in Mumbai also, you can see there is some networking point which is present. Now, the question is, how are these data centers connected? See, there are continuous networking points also. These light blue dots are all the networking points. In Sri Lanka also, you can see there is some networking point. The regions are significantly given by these dots. So if you go back in UAE also, in Gulf also, we have two regions, Qatar Central and UAE North. Now, this is with respect to Azure. If I go back to US, there are multiple regions which are present in US. West US 2, West US, West US 3, we have West Central US, South Central US, Central US, North Central, and Canada Central. Okay, this is from Canada, it seems. East US, East US 2. So there are more than 6 different regions which are available in US. Highest in terms of any parts of the world, because this is where the headquarters of Microsoft is. And most of the clouds have multiple regions as compared to any other country in terms of US. In India, as of now, there are two active uh, regions, Central India and South India. See, this India South Central, this is a new region which is as of now available, but not for all the services. There are few set of services, there are few set of resources only which can be created, which inside this India South Central, yeah, the team is working, the Microsoft Azure team is working to get this central allocated for all the resources which we can easily create. So this is an animated information. You can see in US, in Europe also, there are many such regions which are available. And selecting the appropriate region is very, very important. It's very, very important. Now, this is more specific to the information. Now, if I click on that specific region, also see somewhere the information is getting highlighted. Now, let me click the default US region, which is getting selected in almost all the cases, is East US. This is one of the very first region where Azure data center was established, East US, somewhere near to New York. Now you can see, I mean, all this information, what kind of global compliance they're following, what is their CIS star attention, I mean, attestation, benchmark, all that information is kept here. We have 10 more options which are available. What kind of certified information, what kind of certification is available for that specific data center, all that information is kept here. Stored at rest, United States, I mean, what part of, I mean, which state is it? Even that information is kept. Which year it was opened. So all that information is kept here. Now, how the data is getting stored inside that specific data center, even that can be easily viewed. There is an option here, take a tour, virtual Microsoft data center. Let's see. It will take some time. See, this is how the data center looks like. So we have all this information. Now, let me click on enter the lobby. See, this is very important how that information is kept in data centers. We need to understand how this cloud is working. Unless we understand that, it is very difficult for us also to select the appropriate regions. I mean, how that information is getting stored in the cloud. That also we need to have a basic idea. This is our lobby. I mean, lobby in the sense the reception area. Not much importance. Our primary aim would be how that specific servers are kept. That is where the understanding comes into picture. This is more a kind of operations room. Operations rooms means your engineers will sit here. They'll try to check the status of your data center, whether is it working right, what kind of information is kept. how the information is getting stored in multiple racks. So racks means where our information is getting stored. Now, let me go back. Where exactly the information is getting stored, that is what we need to see. See, this is our exact mechanical area. So inside one specific data center, there can be multiple server rooms. There can be multiple server rooms. This is server room 1, this is server room 2, this is server room 3. So there are multiple server rooms you can see. So inside one server room, there would be one single server and there are multiple racks of information. And information in the sense, the multiple racks are kept, and inside every rack, a storage service is kept where our information is going back and getting stored. Our information will go back and reside there. So every server room is interconnected to each other. In one specific data center, there can be multiple server rooms and every server room is interconnected to each other. Why? Because all that information needs to be clubbed at the end. Now, if you take a look, let me enter the server room where all the information is kept. This is how our informations are captured and kept inside these racks. Every rack has multiple servers. And as I've said, all the servers are connected via multiple wires. You can see the wires are also available at the top. So all this information is clipped. The server blades are there. All this information is captured here. And you can see these are all the storage-like services. Servers means somewhere our information is getting stored in the background. Now, in order to get a basic idea, as I've said, one region can have multiple servers, multiple data centers. One data center, multiple servers or server rooms. And one server room. So all these servers are somewhere connected to each other. One server room, multiple servers. One data center can have multiple server rooms, and one region can have multiple data centers as well. To be more precise, let me give an idea. We have a south region in India, right? For the south region, now where that south region is exactly located, it is in Hyderabad. The Azure South region is located in Hyderabad. We have two different data centers which are available outside of Hyderabad city premises. Two different data centers, and one data center, as I've said, can have multiple server rooms. So I had a flexibility from Microsoft itself. I had a chance to visit one of the data centers where I visited. As a visitor, we have got some, I work for Microsoft for certain projects. So as I've said, for that reason, I've got that visitor access. I had a flexibility to go back and visit one of the data center there. And see how the data centers works. So that is where I've got this idea. This website is not at all easily available. They have given us some tour information that you can virtually visit some data centers also. This is how the data centers looks. So you have a flexibility, go back, check the data center, how data centers looks. I've given you an idea. Once you mention Azure cloud regions, visit the very first website, choose the right region for you. If you scroll down, there is an option, explore Microsoft data centers. So this new website would be opened. You can explore that globe also. You can explore the virtual tour of the data center. You'll get more idea how our information is kept inside the data centers. And if you see, it is giving us some recommendation. After a server room, there is a circular room. Now, what do you mean by circular room? Are helping to deliver towards commitment. Okay. So all that circular room information is kept here. How that circular rooms are there. How the information is getting stored. See, these are all the servers. Here the team sits, the mechanical team sits, and they try to attach multiple storage devices to that specific servers if the data is getting increased. So all that rooms, all that, what kind of data center we have, how that information is there, what kind of rooms are present, where the information is kept, what all information is there. So all that virtual data, virtual tour, you can see that. And you can click on every point which is available. It will give you some idea. The next is the network room, how the networking is done. So this is the network room. From server room, what information we are getting. and how that servers are actively running without any downtime. Network room means here all our power switches are kept. Every data center is powered by a very high voltage electric supply. So if, as I've said, if one of the server or maybe at one of the data center, there is some electricity or power outage, how do they make sure that your resources are easily balanced? There is a concept called as load balancer. See, there is a power outage in the sense all the data centers are managed by automatic power supplies. Even if there is a power outage, there are some heavy generators which will have a continuous power supply. But even if your generators are getting failed, in some times, one of our data centers may not be available for 2 to 3 hours unless that power supply outage is fixed out. In that case, that specific cloud provider has to balance your services inside different data center. So there is a concept called as load balancer. It will go back and balance your services. Maybe in one of the data center, your services are kept, but that data center has a power outage. For that reason, one region is having multiple data centers. There is one, as I've said, but there's one limitation. If one of the data center is facing some issue, the other data center would be located somewhere far from the original data center, or maybe the data center one. So if one data center is present in Hyderabad at one location, the other data center would be present at some other location somewhere far from the other data center. Why? Because both the data centers are not kept at same place. That is how the cloud architecture works. Load balancer will come into picture. Now, if you want to understand more depth inside this, how this cloud plays an important role, how the information is kept. So all this is more a kind of cloud architectural. As a cloud architect, you would go back and understand how this data centers work, how the load balancers work. For us, it is not that important, but just to give you an idea how load balancer plays an important role, how your services are balanced in some other data center if there is outage in the original data center. So it varies. There are multiple rules also. There are multiple rules and regulations which we need to follow. So all that is a part of cloud architect rule. Now coming back, we have seen the importance of regions. So while creating any specific service, it is our responsibility to check which region is feasible. Now, in case of data factory, apart from region, there are multiple other options also. I mean, whether do you need any version control? For that region, there is a Git configuration. Now, I'm not sure how many people know the importance of GitHub. GitHub is nothing but a version control tool. If you are changing something for a specific service, it will capture the previous history. It will store that previous history. So for that, you need to configure a Git. So GitHub, it will check the versions which you had previously, and it will try to capture all that historical information. Now, apart from Git configuration, there is a networking tab. There is this, some additional tabs are also present. Now it varies. As I've said, this is for data factory. If I again go back, maybe if I click here and I'm trying to create some other service, maybe I'll create a SQL database. See, while creating a SQL database, the number of options would be totally different. You can see there is networking, there is security here. So it varies what kind of service you are creating. Depending on that, the options would vary. Now let's start. Maybe today I'll give you a basic idea how to get started with creating the services. What services are important to start with? I mean, we need to first understand what services are important. Now, we would be starting with a storage service. We may not directly jump to a database. We may directly not jump to a Azure Data Factory. But prior to Data Factory, let's understand a service called as storage accounts. Now, what exactly storage accounts is? See, keep one thing in mind. How I am creating any specific service, you have to follow that same approach. Why? Because if you follow that approach, it is very easier for us to understand whether we are following the same flow of hierarchy. We need to first, once you have a Azure account activated, we need to first select the subscription. Once you select the subscription, open that subscription. Inside that subscription, you will get all these options. Now, all these means somewhere you'll get like this. Now, you'll have a question, where is the resource group? Go to settings. Inside the settings option, there is this resources and resource group available. So I would always recommend, once you select the subscription, come down to resource group, create a common resource group which you want to have. Let me delete the yesterday's temporary resource group which I've created. See, there is this temporary resource group which I have created. There is an option called as delete. I want to delete this. You have a flexibility. See, it is asking us, enter resource group name to confirm deletion. I want to delete this resource group. Again, I have to mention that same name. You can delete this. Done. Now, the thing is, once you come down to subscription, select the resource group. It will take some time. So the deletion is happening in the background. So that is the reason it is still available here. Now come down to resource group, click on new resource group. So let me create a resource group with certain name. This would be for Fabric Azure August 24 batch. So I'm creating a resource group for this specific batch. See, resource group names can only have alphanumeric underscores hyphens. That means there shouldn't be any space. There are some restrictions. You have to follow that. Resource group is done. Where do you want to keep this resource group? See, if you have created a resource group and inside this resource group, you are creating a resource. If your resource group is created in East US and you are creating a resource in India, yes, even that is possible. Even that is possible. That shouldn't be any problem. Resource group can be in a different region. Resources can be in a different region. That won't be a problem. Let's see how it works. Now, default, as I've said, most of the cases, East US is the default region. But let's go with East US only. Maybe going further, I would be selecting some Indian regions because I am working from India. But let's go with East US default. Let me go to the next tab. Apply tags to your Azure resources to locally organize them by categories. I mean, this is not required. Let me go to the last option, review and create. Okay, let me create this. I guess review validation is passed. Let me create a new resource group. Okay, the resource group is created. See, this is our resource group, Fabric Azure August 2024. Our resource group is created. Subscription resource group, click on that specific resource group. Now, inside this resource group, I want to create resources. So what kind of resources I want to create? I want to create a storage account. Let me click on create. So you will get a marketplace here. Marketplace means what all services are present inside this Azure. List of all the services will come here. All the services will come here. Now, there are some filters which are being applied. I mean, if you want to search something, search that. I want to create a storage account. Now, I'll give you an idea what do you mean by storage account. This is our storage account. The very first option which you get, storage account. Let's click on that. So we have few ratings. See, it just looks like an app store. It just looks like an app store. You have some ratings. Let me click on create. Now, prior to this, if I go to marketplace, click on storage account. See, for every service, it is a chargeable service. As I've said, pay as you go service. Let me see if there is any charging, or maybe what is the charges which we would be getting, whether that information is kept here. I don't see anything. There is a documentation. There is this option called as pricing. Let me open this. You can see what kind of file structure you are selecting, which region you're selecting, and what is the minimum amount. Now you have to go back and understand this is more a kind of architectural level design. From a data analyst point of perspective, this is not that easy to understand for us. Okay, maybe I have a good idea, but for you people, I would not recommend to go back and see, but just to get an idea, what would be the charges, how it works. Um, I mean, how the charges are deducted depending on the storage amount. I mean, the file, how large that file is, or what kind of file structure is it? It varies. It varies from file structure to it varies from what size of that file we are storing inside the storage account. Now, let's again go back. Let me click on create. So I want to create a storage account. Storage account is nothing but a service where we can dump any kind of data, In simple terms, let me mention service one, which is storage account. Now, can be used to store or dump any kind of data. The ideal idea is can be used to store or dump any kind of data. Now, in case of storage account, as I've said, I mean, the pricing varies from file size to file types also, what kind of file types you're loading. I mean, what kind of data types or data files you're loading to that specific storage account. Now, in simple terms, if you want to correlate the storage account, you can correlate it with your laptop or your local system folder. Your local system folder. You have your laptop, you have your C drive, D drive, E drives. Depending on how you want to bifurcate that drive, same concept happens inside the storage account. We have multiple folders. Inside folder, there are multiple subfolders which we can go ahead and create. Now, first, let's create storage account and then let's see how this works. Now, I should give a name. I should give a certain name to it. Let me give it a name. Fabric storage. See, the thing is, while mentioning the name of any services, it should be all lowercase. You cannot, I mean, you cannot use any uppercase. This is for only certain services. For storage account, that is how it works. So let me change everything in small. Right? This is my name of the storage account. You can see there is no error. Region, see, I'm going with the default selected region. It is up to us which region we need to select. You can see as compared to ADF, we have multiple regions. We have few more regions which are present here. Now, Samira had a question, does this distance from the region matters for the client that is accessing the data in the data center? Yes. Because from which region, what would be the downtime? If there is some network delay or latency also, it varies from region to region. So if you are selecting India and if that person is working from US, it is not recommended. Okay, if the client is from India also, then you can go ahead with the Indian region only. So somewhere the times, I mean the time slots, when the downtime time slots, when the network delay happens, usually the planned network delays are post working hours for that specific region. So usually after 8 p.m. in the evenings, the downtime happens, or maybe at the midnights. So it is important to select the exact region. Now I'll go with the default East US only. There is an option called as performance. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, Anand. I guess you're yeah, Anand, you're good.
Yeah, sorry. I think I was trying to ask before and I had to reconnect. So yeah, did you answer the question that I posted in the chat? Was that the question? Oh, you're saying, okay. So the distance, right? I just wanted to understand the networking aspect of it, right? You know, the distance, does it matter? Because yeah, usually clients keep south, north, east in US, right? You know, so that they are apart from each other. And the main concern is the downtime. If one of the centers is down, if they have multiple nodes, so that the other center is available. But I heard you saying one of the reasons is because of the downtime, right? But again, I'm thinking more of on the data center side. It's when it's down, basically because for any reasons they have to have another region available. But on the networking aspect, did you say the distance matters or it does not?
Rather than distance, it is the network latency, which you can say the delays of see, if there is one data, one complete region cannot go in downtime. I mean, at a time in one region, there can be one of the data center where there is a network delay. Not all the data centers in one region cannot go. That is how the balancing is done by each cloud provider. So distance doesn't matter much. That isn't the case because a developer can be from India, but a region can be somewhere from US. That doesn't matter. The thing is, which region you are selecting, it is important just for networking delays, the downtimes, the network delays or latencies of information. That is where the distance is not that point of maybe to be considered. It can be the distance doesn't matter. In simple terms, it doesn't matter. It is what the downtime, it is what the network delays which matters most.
Yeah, are there any network delays because of the distance? Again,
No,
coming.
no, that isn't the case.
Okay.
A person from India doesn't face network delays with respect to distance. That isn't the case. Okay, if there is downtime in that region at that specific time intervals, yeah, they would face, but not with respect to distance. There is one important thing. Maybe I've missed that. Microsoft has few data centers underwater also, inside sea. Underwater data centers are also present. Microsoft finds underwater data centers reliable, practical, and use energy sustainable. So this is how the information is kept inside underwater. This is not one data center. This is one of the server which is present inside the ocean. And this is called as one data center also. There are few data centers which are located at the coastal regions. That coastal region data centers are underwater. And why underwater data centers are recommended is the temperature inside the water is not that high. Somewhere it's cold. Maybe the temperature is easily maintained for these server rooms or data centers as compared to the data centers which are available on the ground. So the amount of spending would be comparatively less, but yeah, there are limitations also. If there is some, the aquatic life is disturbing these data centers, that can be a possible case because I mean, as an individual, as a human, we are going inside the sea, we are also disturbing the aquatic life. So somewhere Microsoft, if it feels that data center can be kept underwater, yes, they have tried this. There are 2 to 3 data centers which are available inside underwater, under the sea. Now you will have a question if under the sea, there would be some network delay. Yes, sometimes network delay happens, but this is not with respect to distance. This is with respect to, okay, if there is some glitch, if there is some power outage, in that case, the network delay happens, not with respect to distance. One data center will never go downtime. That is what I'm trying to say. One region cannot go. One data center can go downtime. So as I've said, one of the data centers going downtime, the information from that data center is captured for a specific moment and it is somewhere virtually stored. I mean, every information is somewhere virtually stored, right? So that load balancer will manage and it will handle it with some other data center. That is how the load balancing works. Now I've selected region. See, while creating the storage account or any specific service, go with basic information. Do not create premium. Go with standard. Charges would be high in premium.
So, Ritesh, one more question. Just trying to understand this storage account. So this is to basically storing information.
Yep.
So basically, it's storing using some region and some data center to store your information.
Yes.
So is storage account also used for the SQL database in the back? Do you need to have a storage account?
No, not for database. It works like a database only, just like we dump our information database, we can dump any files inside the storage account. Now, once I create, maybe it will give you a better idea. Okay, now performance, you should go with basic. We have an option here. Redundancy. What kind of redundancy you want? Go with locally redundant storage. It would be cheaper. Do not use some random or premium services, which is not recommended. For our practice, basic or standard services are more than enough. Now in advanced tab, let me see what all options I have. The latest version is 1.2, which I've selected. Okay. Allow cross-tenant replication. The most important aspect while creating the storage account is access tiers. What kind of access tiers you want to use? There are two different access tiers. See, this is an interview question also. A very, very important interview question. Whenever you create any storage account, what kind of access tiers you select or what kind of access tiers are available? There are two different access tiers. One is hot and one is cool. Now, what do you mean by hot and what do you mean by cool? See, storage account, as I've said, it works like a folder. Folders or drives which are available inside our laptops or desktops, maybe inside our mobiles also. We have file system or folder system, right? So in folder system, you can create multiple subfolders and you can dump your data, right? So similar concept is used in this storage account. Now, what do you mean by access tier is, see, this is much important because the storage account is a cloud-based service. So if you want to access any files inside the storage account, you need to go back active. I mean, using that cloud account access only, you need to activate that. So you need to access that. So what do you mean by access tiers? How you are accessing this information, how frequently you are accessing. If you are accessing your data on daily basis, it should be always kept in hot tier. Now, what do you mean by hot tier? Data which is used or accessed on daily basis. If you are accessing your data on daily basis, that means on every minute, after every second, you're coming and checking the storage account folders. You are frequently visiting that storage account. So it should be in hot tier. Now, what do you mean by cool tier? Cold tier or cool tier? What do you mean by cool tier is, see, in case of cool tier, the information is dumped, but you are not accessing this information on daily basis. You are accessing it once a week or maybe once a month. Usually week is not recommended. In case if you're accessing a data once a week also, it should be in hot tier. But if you're accessing your data once in a month or every month basis, you are coming and accessing the data, it should be kept in cool tier. Why? Because it is not frequently used, right? In case of cool tier, what the Azure team does is it will keep your data as it is intact. But what they'll do, they will certainly restrict access for daily usage, which will help them to reduce their what you say the pricing, because you're not accessing on daily basis. So what they'll do, they'll keep it stable for ideal for certain 30 days. You have to mention on which day you want to access. There are a few limitations also, you can mention that. Now, if you are coming on accessing it on monthly basis, it will also reduce your costing. But if you are selecting cool tier and you are accessing that data on daily basis, it is double the cost of hot tier. It is double the cost of hot tier. Why? Because you have selected cool tier, you are going against the policy of cool tier. You are accessing it on daily basis, it will double the price of hot tier. Just an example, if hot tier is costing you 2 Indian rupees or 2 pennies per day, in case of cool tier, so 2 pennies per day, somewhere it would be 60 per month, 60. In case of cool tier, if you're accessing that information only once a month, it would be somewhere around 10 to 15 pennies, which is very low. But as I've said, if you're accessing cool tier on daily basis, it would be double the amount of hot tier. Somewhere it would be 120 to 130 pennies. So the recommendation is you have to ideally select which tier is useful for you. If you want to access it on daily basis or maybe once or twice a week, go with hot tier, which is recommended. And this is an important interview question. This is with respect to storage accounts. Let me go back. I'll go with hot because I want to access it on frequent basis. Let's see what I can select. Okay, looks good. Nothing is required. Let me go to next option, networking. See, do not click on review and create at the very first instance. You have to go back and check all these options. Network access, enable public access from all the networks. So everyone who has this specific storage account access should be able to access it from their respective networks. So that is defaultly selected. Add a client IP address. This is not required. Let me go to next tab. Here in data protection, there are two important concepts. One is soft delete and one is hard delete. What do you mean by soft delete and what do you mean by hard delete? See, default soft delete options are automatically checked in. Now, what do you mean by soft delete is, now where is it kept? It is a part of data protection. There is a concept called as soft delete. I'm sure few people might know the importance of this, or maybe they have an idea. In case of soft delete means, now what do you mean by delete and why this delete comes into picture in case of storage account? Just like our folder system, if you I mean, in one of these folders or one of the subfolders, you're trying to save some CSV file and you want to delete that file. Once you delete it, that file is also available in your empty, the recycle bin, right? That folder is not automatically deleted. It would be available inside recycle bin. You can go back and restore that file. So that restoring a file is called as soft delete. You are deleting something, that file is not automatically deleted or not directly deleted from your folder. It would be available for certain duration. In case of recycle bin, somewhere it would be available for 60 days. After 60 days, that file would be automatically deleted from the recycle bin also. You cannot restore it. So that is called a soft delete. Even if you delete a specific file, that file would be available for a certain duration of time, which you can recover. That recovery process, whatever time slot you're mentioning, that means that recovery process or deleting process is called a soft delete. In case of soft delete, recovery is possible. Recovery of file deleted is possible. In case of hard delete means no recovery. Automatically deleted from folders. It would be vanished. That file will not be available. It would be automatically deleted from the folder or storage account. There. It should be a storage account because we are working on cloud. So there are two options, soft delete and hard delete. Now, while in the data protection, these are automatically enabled. If you uncheck these options, that means there is no soft delete. It will work like a hard delete. That file would be automatically deleted. That file will be automatically deleted. So default is checked in, let it be. How many days you want to retain that file inside that specific container. Now there is a concept called as container. There is a concept called as blob. There is a concept called as file share. Default, it would be 7. That means for 7 days, that file would be present. Let it be as it is. Let me go to next option. There is an encryption. Enable support for customer manage. Okay, this is not required. And default options which are selected, let's go with that. Tags not required. Let me go to the last window, which is review and create. See, there is some validation which is going background. Okay, looks good. Now let me click on create. This will start creating the storage account. And keep one thing in mind. From today itself, maybe once you activate your Azure portals, if you are working on this creation of Azure services, do not do in a hurry. Sometimes we might tend to select few premium options and we may end up creating any service which would be very high chargeable. I would not recommend to create this in a hurry. If you have something going in your mind in the background, you're only following the process. You're not interested to create any service. Leave it. Once you are okay, once you're stable, then only come down and create a service. See, there is no option. Sometimes there is a flexibility that you might end up creating a service with premium options selected. Once you delete it, even if you use that service, even if you don't use that service, sometimes it will charge you some amount for day one, which cannot be recovered. So recommended is Okay, you can raise a ticket. You can say that by mistake, I have selected premium. I was supposed to select normal. Team would respond, but I would not recommend to go back and do all that process. Whenever you are creating any specific service or a resource, be in a stable the ideal mode. Have a look on all the services, all the options, only then click on creating service, right? Now the service is created. Let me go to that specific service or resource. Fabric storage. This is our storage account. The icon should be different. There is some glitch in this Azure portal. Let me refresh this. The icon should be different here. What should be the ideal icon? If I go to Home tab, for storage account, this is the icon. And the icon which we are getting, that is for resource group. It happens. Now the icon has changed. So this is our storage account. Now inside this storage account, as I've said, it works like a file system or file folder system. Storage account is one account. Inside that account, you want to create multiple folders. Folders here are called as containers. If you want to create any folder, that folder is called as container. You can check all this information here. In overview tab, what is this service? What kind of account kind you have selected? When was it created? What is the performance type? Where is that located? The region. See, you have an option to move from one resource group to different resource group, from one subscription to different subscription also. Now here, you will have an option called as access control. You want to, share this. You want to share this storage account with some other people also. You have that flexibility. You can share this storage account. I can click on add. See, if I click on my access, I would be admin here, service administrator, because I have full rights. I have created this service from my login credentials. So if I want to share the storage account, you have an option, click on add, what kind of role assignment you want to add, define that role assignment, what kind of role you want to select. There are multiple roles. It varies from service to service. I would not recommend to share any of the services within each other, because everyone will have their own storage accounts, or maybe everyone will have their own Azure portals. Just to give you an idea, you have a flexibility. You can select role. Maybe I want to add a person as a reader. I've selected reader. I'll have to go to the members. Reader role is selected. Click on the select member. I want to add a member here. You can add a group of people also. You have to create a group. Inside that group, 10 to 12 people would be part of it. Maybe more than 10 to 12 also. You can add that group. So all that people in that group would be getting access in one single group. Or maybe you can give individual access also. You have a flexibility. You can go back and give individual accesses as well. Mention that specific person name, select that, what kind of description you want to give, add it, that specific name, review and assign. That's it. So we have that option. If I go back, now the question is, where can we create the folders, right? Where can we create the folders? See, there is an option called as data storage. What do you mean by storage account? It is used for storage. There is an option called as data storage. You can store information in 4 different formats inside the storage account. One is container. Container is nothing but a folder. There is queue, there is table, and there is file share. There are 4 different storage formats which are available inside the storage account. The most commonly used is container. Why? Because it works like a folder. You can create a folder. Inside that folder, you can dump any data. Now let's go to the container. See, this is our container. You have an option called as plus container. You want to create a new folder. The name should be all lowercase. For the storage account, it follows all the lower cases. New folder. The thing is, somewhere there is a white space. The name should be certainly different. The name may only contain lowercase numbers and hyphens and must begin with a letter or a number. Each hyphen must be preceded by following. Okay. Now, why is it not? Okay, there is some white space. Yeah. New folder. See, there is an option here. You have an option called as advanced. These are limited. I mean, grayed out. Anyways, let me create a folder here. Folder means your container. A folder is created. Let me click on this. Inside this, you can load any kind of data. Either you can manually load. There is an option called as access control. If you don't want to give access to the complete storage account and you want to give access to one of the container inside that storage account, even that is visible. There is this new folder, which is a container. You want to give access to this container only, not the other folders inside the storage account. Even that is visible here. Now we will see few options. We can store data in two modes. If you have any other service which is created and for that service the storage account is connected, you can get that data using any cloud service also, or else you can manually load any specific data here. You have that flexibility. You can manually load that data. If you click on upload, it will open a upload pop-up. You have an option called as browse from file or browse for files. From our local system, you can load any kind of data. So you have an option. Let me go to this. I can load any kind of data. Now let me load certain data to it. I load this electronic store, an Excel file, maybe CSV file, which I have in my local system. Let me open this. So it will first read that. File is selected. Let me click on upload. So it will upload that file to this container or folder. So it's somewhere around 3 MB. The file is loaded. So there is an option. You can download this again. Maybe some other person has loaded a file here. You want to download that file, you can download it. There is an option called as view and edit. What information is present inside that information can also be seen, but see, there is some restriction. File size is of 3.3 MB, exceeds maximum support size of 2.1. In case if you want to see the data which is present inside the CSV file, that file format should be less than 2. I mean, that file storage or file size should be less than 2 MB. In that case, you can see that information. If you want to, again, you don't have an option to see, you can download that and you can see it in your local system. Even that is visible. There is an option called as view versions. How many versions of this files are available? Let me again click on upload. Let me click on browse for files. I'm again selecting that same file. Click on open. See, it will throw an error here. The following file already exists. You want to overwrite that file. If you click on this, that error was gone. That means it will overwrite the file which you are uploading it now. It will again rewrite that file. Written. Let me click on view versions. The file is same. There is no change. That is the reason it is not capturing the versions. That is the reason it is not capturing the versions. Now, see, there is URL. If you go to this 3 dots, this is more settings option. You have multiple options here. If you click on properties also, properties of that file would be managed or handled here. What is the size? What kind of access tier you have selected? All that information is cached. What is the file format? Text or a CSV file format? There is multiple. I mean, there is a URL also. These URLs are important. Going further, if you want to connect this file to some other service inside this cloud, you need to have this URL. What is the last modified date? What is the creation date? All that information is kept. You want to change access tier. You have a flexibility to change your access tier. Recommended is hot every time. Why? Because most of the people use the storage account on daily basis. There are very few who use it once in a month. They will always go with cool. Archive, it works like your archive. It would be archived. See, there is this option called as show deleted blobs. If you have deleted one of the file, you can still see that file. Why? Because we have selected what we have selected. Soft delete option, the data protection soft delete option. So that is the reason if you have deleted one of the file, that would be still available for 7 days. You can recover it. Past 7 days, it would not be available. While creating the service only, we have to select how many days you want to keep that file in soft delete mode. I'll take a pause of a minute. Any questions up till what I have covered now?
Hi, Ritesh.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so does this blobs and you told right inside a storage account, whatever files we stored are technically called as containers, termed as containers. So does this blobs and containers mean the same? Because here it shows show deleted blobs.
Blob is nothing but a file which you are loading to that container. In simple terms, storage accounts are also called as blob storages. Now, what do you mean by blob storage? There are different names. Do not get confused with this. Different names are there. Storage accounts are also called as blob storages. What do you mean by blob? Binary large object. What do you mean by binary large object? Any information which is stored inside any specific storage device that is stored in binary format. 0, 1, 1, 0. You take an example of your hard disk, you take an example of your memory card, you take an example of your SSD drives, you take an example of any storage system. Every information which you load to that storage system is stored in 1001 format. That is binary format. That is the reason it is called as binary large object. Now, what do you mean by large object? There is a very high flexibility. In case of storage account, you can store some data which is more than GBs of information. Yes, you can store it in GBs as well. Okay, terabytes of information is not recommended. But in case if the file size is in gigabytes, GBs, you can store that information in blob storage. If at all it is in terabytes, it is recommended to go back and store it in the data warehouses. So region to call storage account is blob storages. You can store large files also. And blob storage supports any file format. You can dump images, you can dump sec text, CSV files. There are many file formats also. Going further, we need to understand what all file formats are there. Text file, CSV file, we only know these two. We have an Excel file. But apart from these two, apart from these three, there are multiple file formats. There is an Avro format. There is a Parquet format. Parquet file format is widely used across industries. It will compress the data. If the data is of 1 GB, it will compress it to around 700 MB. That is how important Parquet file formats are. So we would be learning all that going further. But just to give you an idea, blob means binary large object. You can store any large information inside the storage account. So if you are dumping any file, that file is called as blob file. Folders are called as containers here.
Ritesh, quick question. So does our account already active for us to go create Azure account?
Yep. You need to have an active Azure account. See, what I would be covering for next 2 days also, you can again go back and create when you activate your Azure portals. It is not that difficult.
Okay. But the same account will work is what I'm hearing. The same account username password that we have to use those to connect to the Azure network. Okay.
You can connect, but see, once you log in also, it would not be activated directly. I have said you need to have a credit card available with you. And now that process I would be explaining again, but I would not recommend to create from today only. I would request you to wait till Monday. On Monday, I'll show you. Maybe after that, you can go back and create.
Okay.
Any other questions on what we covered today? So we kind of covered one of the service. There are a few other points which are left out that I would be covering. Probably tomorrow, some other service I would be starting with. See, the services which I would be covering in this free sessions, it is not that difficult to again go back and reiterate them while practicing. It would be straightforward. That is how that design, or that is how the plan is. Once you activate your portal, as and when the difficulty increases, so you have to practice it on that specific day or maybe on weekends. If you are attending the sessions on daily basis and you're not practicing, see, for Power BI it works, for SQL it works, for Azure, if you're not practicing on that specific weekends or maybe on daily basis, it is very difficult again. You have to go back and understand. If you are going through each and every record, maybe after completion of this course, it is not recommended. So try to practice maybe on daily basis as and when you get time, or maybe on weekends. Yep. Any other questions on this? What we covered, or any other questions related to this course, how it would be? See, I kind of covered with service one. Maybe we would be starting with some other service tomorrow to give you a basic idea how that works. So silence, it means no. What I assume is everyone got what we had discussion today. If you have again any other questions, make sure you note down. You can ask me in tomorrow's session also. I'll be able to answer that. Yep, we are good on time. Maybe we have still 5 more minutes. I'll give it back to you. Thank you, everyone. Let's connect back tomorrow with further discussions. Yep. Thank you and have a good day.